Twisted Wonderland Characters, we're your roommate. In this segment, we are going to be classifying the Twisted Wonderland characters as roommates. As you can see, we have a variety of categories. However, I am only going to give you my opinion about where I think for these categories, but I would still love to hear what you guys say about the characters as roommates. This includes whether you think there should be a separate category or whatever other information you have about the character that you would think puts them in a different category. I'd love to hear your opinions about that in the comments. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started. Starting with the first one, we have Cruel. Cruel is pretty easy, I think. He's a control freak. Cruel would definitely be the type of person who would tell you, she'd be like, Pop, you're doing it wrong, do it this way, listen to me. He's like, stay. Stay! So overall, Cruel would be a control freak. Alright, and next we have Crawly. Crawly should be responsible enough to pay his rent. But then again, he pushes all his responsibilities onto us. The entire student body will be held back, yourselves included. What world do you think a security system that can be actually exists? I kind of want to put him in the type where he doesn't pay rent or he forgets to pay rent. Okay, Sam. Sam is a bit of a mystery as a roommate. Sam, I would imagine, he wouldn't be home as a roommate. He would be out making some sort of shady deals or getting some sort of exclusive merchandise for him to sell in his shop. So that's what the question mark category is for. Sam is one of those characters. He wouldn't be there. We wouldn't know what he was doing. Alright, next we have Train. Train Sensei. Train Sensei is also a control freak. I'm sorry to say this. Train would be like, did you do your homework? I feel like Train would be, he would like, even outside of class time, he'd be like monitoring you and telling you how to behave. Okay, next we have Coach Vargas. He's a natural disaster. Coach Vargas has been like, I have to train my muscles. And he would be all about training and eating his raw eggs. And I feel like he would just turn the whole like apartment into a mess. Alright, moving on. Next we have Didia. Didia, I feel like he would be like a fun roommate to have around. I know like Didia likes to play like online games and he likes to do like a lot of things. He's pretty adventurous, right? And you could hear about the tales of his past. Okay, just for this reason, I'm gonna put him in this category. Didia is a natural disaster. And the reason is because you put Didia in the kitchen and I don't think the kitchen is gonna survive. Okay, next we have Malleus. So Malleus is another one of those mysterious characters. I feel like Malleus, you wouldn't know what he was doing. You wouldn't know where to find him. He's always kind of like somewhere. He would just pop up and then disappear. So for that reason, I think Malleus is kind of a mystery. He's kind of like Sam. Like you don't know what he's doing. He's there and then he's not there. Okay, next we have Sebek. Okay, Sebek, I would definitely say would pay his rent on time. He would not want to bring any dishonor onto Malleus or Didia or anyone from the Briar Valley. He would be an upstanding roommate and pay his rent on time. Okay, Silver. Like Sebek, I would say he pays his rent too. You know, he doesn't want to bring dishonor onto Malleus and Didia. He would be the guy who like oversleeps for all your classes. Silver would probably barely make it on time. Alright, Grim. Grim doesn't pay rent. Grim would be like, you're my henchman, so you pay the rent. Alright, Ace. Ace would pay rent probably. Ace is kind of like sometimes where he kind of likes to slack off and stuff, but he's pretty like serious and like if he puts his mind to it, he can do things. And I feel like rent is probably something that he would pay. Alright, Kato. Kato is another character I think who would just pay rent normally. I think he generally would be a type of character who would pay rent regularly and not to cause too many problems in the apartment. Alright, now we have a Deuce. Deuce would be a natural disaster when he has his in his bad boy mode, when he's like picking fights. But like generally when Deuce is not on his like bad boy mode, I think he would try to be the upstanding roommate, pay his rent, and like help do his part. Alright, next we have Rito. Rito, this should be pretty easy. Control freak. Alright, next we have Trey. Trey would probably, like the rest of his dorm mates, pay his rent too. Trey's pretty responsible. He would sometimes like to play pranks on you, like his whole oyster sauce joke. But other than that, I feel like Trey would pay rent. Alright, Idia. Idia is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, he would stay shut in his room all the time, probably surfing the internet, playing some games, or watching some anime. So for that reason, I feel like Idia would be question mark, because we don't know what he's doing. We don't know if Idia is keeping track of the date and whether or not he would pay his rent or doesn't pay his rent. Alright, next is Orto. Okay, so with Orto, I feel like he would pay his rent. Orto's more extroverted than Idia, so you would see him. He would like come outside of his room. Orto would be the person who pays the rent for Idia. He'd be like, yeah, I can pay my brother's rent, you know, just give me the account number and I'll wire you the money. If you choose to room with either one of them, you're probably gonna get the other. So Orto, I feel like he'd pay his rent. He would pay his rent and Idia's rent. Alright, next we have Azul. Okay, the thing about Azul is I don't think he would pay his rent. And the reason being is not that he forgets to pay his rent, it's because he doesn't have to pay rent. I feel like Azul would come up with some business antics where he somehow got hold of the apartment. Like, let's say, like he used his unique spell to make a deal with the landlord or something, and somehow or another Azul managed to come with some elaborate scheme to get the rights to the apartment and essentially become the landlord. And for that reason, I would say he doesn't pay rent because he doesn't need to. Okay, Floyd. Floyd would be a natural disaster. Depending on his mood, Floyd may or may not be willing to do certain things. Like, if you want Floyd to like clean up, if he's not in the mood, he's not gonna clean up. And like, if you piss him off, then he's probably gonna want to fight you. Okay, Jade. Jade, I feel like pays his rent normally. I don't know, I don't have too much to say about him. If you guys have like any other reasons or any categories you think he might fit, please do let me know. Okay, Eperu. I see Eperu. He would pay his rent on time. I don't think he would be much of a natural disaster. Similar to Deuce, he kind of has like that bad boy-like thing, which is actually Eperu's true personality. I feel like his like personality probably wouldn't cause too many problems. I feel like he would just pay his rent normally and be like a good roommate. So for that reason, Eperu would pay his rent. Okay, Rook. Rook is another character full of mystery, kind of like we didn't know about him being a fan of Nej. So I'm gonna put him in the question mark category. Okay, Viru. I'm sorry, Viru, but you're also a control freak. Viru is strict with himself, but I also feel like he's very strict with others. You know, he has like a very set schedule for himself, and he's strict with Eperu. I definitely feel like Viru would be the type of person to tell us not to do things. Alright, a few more characters. Next we have Jack. Now, Jack is another kind of strict character. He has like his own self-schedule. I know that like Jack like gets up early, he does his run, you know, he has his like training and everything. Jack, I feel like, is very straightforward. He would pay his rent on time. Like, Jack studies him by himself, you know, he can like pass his classes, you know, he doesn't need to rely on anyone else. Okay, Leon. Despite how lazy Leona can sometimes be, I feel like he would pay his rent. Because He's pretty responsible when his responsibilities call. Also, for Leona, since he's rich, he'd be like, yeah, this rent is cheap, and it's just a single, like, dime in his wallet or something. Okay, Ragi. I can't say for certain that Ragi would pay his rent all the time. I think, like, when he has the money, he would pay his rent, because he would be working a ton of part-time jobs to get money to pay rent. Sometimes, like, he might not have enough to pay rent for that month or something. For that reason, I don't think it's that Ragi forgets to pay rent, but, like, if he doesn't have enough money to pay rent, then he can't pay his rent. Okay, Jamidu like 3 of these categories all at once. So, Jamidu would pay rent. He is responsible, he's good enough to take care of Karimu, he would definitely pay his rent on time. At the same time, he's kind of a control freak. He would be like, we need to do this, it needs to be done, this. And yeah. At the same time, he's also a natural disaster. He's 3 of these categories. Okay, the reason why I say he's a natural disaster is because Jamidu, he sees a bug, he's gonna set it on fire. I will burn it all to the ground. But for the most part, I would say out of all 3 of them, the most, I would say control freak. And finally, we have Karimu. Alright, Karimu, he is the one who doesn't pay rent or forgets to pay rent. Okay, two reasons here on this. He doesn't pay rent because his family bought the entire building, and basically Karimu's family is the owner of the building, so why would he need to pay rent to his family? Second reason he doesn't pay rent is because Jamidu pays his rent for him. So for that reason, I feel like Karimu would not pay his rent. Alright, and so that is the Twisted Wonderland Roommate Edition. I would have to say overall there is a lot more characters I classified as paying rent than I thought. I think some characters could go either way, you know, like Jamu could be in 3 different categories. If Azul doesn't have some sort of contract that has him, he would definitely just be the type of person to pay rent. So overall, this is the Twisted Wonderland Roommate Edition. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts or reasonings why characters should be in other categories or a possible category that didn't exist on this tier list. Please do let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching. Bye!